how do you even begin to describe something that's, by its very definition, indescribable? I mean, it's a paradox, right? It's a puzzle that has stumped philosophers for centuries. But what if the answer isn't about what you can say, but what you can't? Today, we're going to dive into a pretty radical and honestly counterintuitive idea called the Via Negativa. Okay, so to really get this solution, we first have to understand the problem. And it's a problem we all run into probably more than we realize: the limits of our own language. You've probably heard this song lyric, and it actually gets at a really deep truth. Our words, well, they fail us sometimes. They're fantastic for ordering a pizza, sure, but when you're trying to capture a really complex emotion or talk about something truly huge, they can just feel clumsy, inadequate. Now just imagine that problem scaled up to infinity. And this is the core challenge. When philosophers and theologians tried to talk about a concept like God, a being that's supposed to be completely different and greater than anything we could ever imagine, they just hit a brick wall. Our language is built for our world, for the things we can see and touch. So how on earth can it apply to something beyond all that? This right here gets to the heart of it. Let's just take the word good. When we say a person is good, we have a pretty good idea of what that means. But when we take that same limited, human-sized word and try to slap it on an infinite concept, we're not really getting a better understanding. We're actually just shrinking the infinite down to our own size. So with our positive language kind of falling flat, what's the alternative? Well, this is where some ancient thinkers got really, really creative with a completely different approach. And here it is, the Via Negativa, which just means the negative way. Think about it like this. A sculptor doesn't add clay to create a statue. They take a block of stone and chip away everything that isn't the statue. They reveal the form by removing stuff. This approach tries to do the exact same thing, but with language. So here's the crucial move. Instead of trying to make a positive claim like, God is good, which we can't really wrap our heads around anyway, you make a whole series of negative claims. You can say with a lot of confidence that God is not wicked, God is not mean, God is not hateful. The idea is that by clearing away all the things something isn't, you leave behind this empty space where the truth can exist, even if you can't point to it directly. And this wasn't some fringe idea. It was a big deal across different cultures. Way back in the 3rd century, the philosopher Plotinus was already arguing that the good was unknowable in this way. A couple centuries later, the mystic Pseudo-Dionysius warned that using positive language creates an anthropomorphic God, basically one that we've accidentally made in our own small human image. But maybe its most famous champion was the 12th century Jewish scholar Maimonides, who gave us a really brilliant way to understand how this works. To take this really abstract idea and make it, concrete, Maimonides came up with this fantastic thought experiment, a kind of riddle that shows you just how powerful saying not can be. Okay, so he asks us to imagine that we know what a ship is, but our friend over here has no clue. Our job is to help them understand it. But, and this is a huge but, there's a catch. You can't say what a ship is. You can only describe it by saying what it is not. Sounds pretty much impossible, right? Well, let's see how it plays out. Okay, so person number 1 steps up. They say, it is not a mineral. Boom. Right away, you've ruled out every rock, metal, and gem in existence. A huge category of things is just gone. Then person 2 adds, it is not a plant. Okay, now the entire plant kingdom is out. The picture is getting just a tiny bit less fuzzy. And then a third person says, it is not an accident. Now that's a big one. It tells us the object has a purpose. It was designed, it was created intentionally. We're definitely getting closer. Maimonides argued that if you keep this process going, it is not a sphere, it is not flat, it does not have legs. By the time 10 people have spoken, your listener would have an almost perfect idea of a ship in their head, without you ever saying a single positive thing about it. So, what do you think? Does that actually work for you? And this little riddle brilliantly sums up Maimonides' whole point. For him, the Via Negativa wasn't just some clever logic game. It was really a form of respect. He thought making positive claims was almost improper because it put limits on an infinite being. True knowledge, he said, actually starts when we admit we don't know, when we recognize the limits of our own understanding. So is the Via Negativa a perfect solution?
Well, like pretty much any big philosophical idea, it's got its strengths, and it's definitely got its critics. Let's break down the arguments for and against it.
On one hand, the strengths are pretty powerful. It absolutely stops us from creating God in our own limited image. It's an idea that's really rooted in humility. But the criticisms are just as strong. I mean, does it really lead to knowledge or just a vague emptiness? Think back to the ship riddle. After 10 knots, do you really have a clear picture of a ship or just a long list of things that aren't a ship? And maybe most importantly, this isn't how most religious people actually talk about God, right? They tend to use very positive language like God is love.
And that really brings us to our final thoughts. The Via Negativa is a super elegant solution to a really profound problem. But does it actually work in the end? Here's a challenge for you. Try it yourself. Pick something huge and complex, like love or justice or even the internet, and try to describe it to someone only by saying what it is not. The answer you find might not give you a perfect definition of love, but it just might show you the true shape and the true limits of your own understanding.